If you've been listening to the podcast lately and finding yourself longing for a summer that feels more spacious, grounded, and nourishing, I want to share something I'm opening very intentionally this season. It's called the Summer Sanctuary. This is a small, private mentoring experience for women who don't just want to get through the summer exhausted and disconnected from themselves, but who want support creating a season that actually feels restorative, emotionally grounding, and aligned. This is intentionally very intimate, and I'll only be opening a few spots this summer. So if it resonates with you and you're curious to learn more, you can find the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode. Welcome to the Power to Flourish podcast, where science meets the art of a beautiful life. I'm Dr. Andrea Line, positive psychologist, giftedness expert and coach, and modern-day spiritual godmother to brilliant, deep-feeling women. This isn't just another self-help podcast. It's a sanctuary, a sacred space to come back to yourself. Each week, we'll explore the emotional experience of gifted, sensitive women and what it means to live a life that feels as beautiful as it may look. Because flourishing isn't a luxury, it's your birthright, and your life is waiting. This is the Power to Flourish podcast. Well, it's the end of May. We are wrapping up Mental Health Awareness Month, and I couldn't think of a better way than to share this conversation today with you. It is really special for me because I'm joined by someone I genuinely adore, and I know you will too, my friend Dayna Altman. I first met Dayna several years ago through a mentoring network for young professionals. And from the very beginning, I was struck by her warmth, creativity, honesty, and the incredible way she brings lightness and joy into conversations that are often incredibly difficult to have. Dayna is a mental health advocate, an entrepreneur, speaker, author, and the founder of Bake It Till You Make It, an organization that uses food, baking, storytelling, and community to create more open and authentic conversations around mental health. She's the author of 5 mental health cookbooks and has spoken everywhere from community kitchens to national conferences, and was even invited to speak at the White House in 2022 for her advocacy work. But what I love most about Dayna is not just all of her accomplishments, which are many. It's the way she shows up in life with so much humanity, vulnerability, wisdom, humor, and heart. You are going to adore her, I promise. In this episode, we talk about perfectionism, masking, achievement, self-worth, mental health recovery, and what it means to flourish from the inside out. Dayna shares openly about many of her struggles, and we explore the complicated reality that many thoughtful, high-capacity women experience, looking capable on the outside while struggling quietly underneath. This conversation felt deeply honest and deeply hopeful to me. There were several moments where I honestly felt like we could have just kept talking for another 2 hours, but we kept it relatively brief. I think many of you will see parts of yourselves in this conversation, especially if you've ever felt pressure to perform, achieve, hold it all together, or appear fine while caring more than most people realize. So settle in and enjoy this beautiful conversation with my friend and wonderful human being, Dayna Altman. Hello, Dayna. I am so excited to have you on the show. I would love for you just to start by sharing a little background. I know we're going to go into more of your story, but just like high level, who are you? Who's Dayna Altman, and what does she do in the world, and what's she passionate about?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is so special to get to share some time and space with you. So thank you. As introduced, I'm Dayna. I'm a Boston-based mental health advocate, entrepreneur, author, creative, patient, all of the above.
All of the things.
I started Bake It Till You Make It, LLC, which is an organization that uses food and baking to talk about mental health in a way that's authentic and vulnerable, but also fun. So, in a way that's playful and really kind of accessible, I guess, for lack of a better term. And these, my organization and are really shaped by my experiences. I live with OCD, major depression, depression, and I'm also in eating disorder recovery. And through my experience as someone who struggles with their mental health, and who wants to talk about it, I founded Bake It Till You Make It back in 2020. So I can't believe it's now 2026, and you'd think I know what I'm doing by now, but I'm still baking it till I make it. And yeah, I'm just so excited to share a little bit more about Bake It and about my story with you today.
I'm so thrilled. And when you said that you started it in 2020, I immediately sort of had like a flashback. Of course, all of us would probably remember exactly where we were and what we were doing in 2020. And you, my dear, are like starting starting this new business. When did we actually connect? Because it was right around that time you were writing, or maybe you had just written, I think, your first book.
Yeah, wow, good memory. Yes. Bake It Till You Make It started as like a brainchild in 2017, but I didn't become an LLC or really kind of become this larger organization until around the time we met in 2020. My first book came out in 2019. So we met right in the heart
Amazing.
of the beginning. Yeah.
Yes. And just for our audience, I met Dayna through a network of young professionals. Dayna is quite a bit younger than myself. I will not ask her to say her age or my age, although I'm fine saying my age. But we're probably a few decades apart. But I had been volunteering and mentoring in a program for young professionals, and she was one, and we got connected, and it was just like it was so fun. So it's very exciting for me always to meet young people, young women in particular, but who have certainly gone through their own journey with their mental health and
Yeah.
then are giving back. And so I was like just so excited to meet you and hear like the very creative pathways you were, carving out at that time. And now, fast forward to 2026, so much more has happened since then. But it's such a wonderful example, I think, for people of all ages, but certainly for your generation of how to talk about these things in a way that doesn't always feel or always need to feel like so heavy all the time. Because it can be,
Yeah.
like obviously these are hard things and struggles that people go through, but through this through the realm of baking, of like all the things to do, it's just a fun concept. So can you share a little bit, like how did it start for you? How did it all come to be that you started this company?
Yeah.
This
So
movement, really. It's like it's
thank you.
a whole thing.
I love that. Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, I mean, I've always been an entrepreneur, like, my whole life. Since I was 8 years old, I was, walking around my neighborhood selling like, these handmade fusion beads. I don't know if you are familiar, but, like, I would
Fusion
make
beads? I don't know
fusion
if I
beads.
know.
You would melt them, like, under an iron, and I would, like, put them on strings and, like, sell them as
Oh.
necklaces. So I have this, like, really vivid memory of watching Dr. Phil with my babysitter and learning about muscular dystrophy. I don't know, they were doing this, like, informational session, and I was like, "Wow, like, I wanna do something." And that's what I did. I went over to the table, and I took out my fusion beads, and I was like, "I'm gonna raise money for muscular dystrophy." And it just, like, it's kind of gone from there, like sorry.
Okay, hold on. Before we go any further, I'm just gonna say pause.
Yes.
That is like a classic gifted kid move, right? I have to say it. I love it because I mean, I don't know how you feel about the label, but this is a podcast for gifted women, and my dear, you are definitely in many ways a gifted
Wow.
woman. But that
Thank you.
story from your childhood is like not every kid does that. Not
Thank you
not
for
every
saying
child does
that.
that. So uh,
Yeah.
definitely gifted entrepreneurially, I'm sure, in so many other ways. So your
Yeah.
entrepreneurial spirit was like from the beginning.
From the beginning, and,
Yeah.
it really evolved, in high school, I switched to my grandfather unfortunately passed away from lung cancer, so I started doing work
Mhm.
around the American Cancer Society, and raising money for them. And then when I got to college, my mental health journey kind of really began. I mean, I've struggled with my mental health my whole life, but I didn't have the words for it until I
Mhm.
really, got to college, and kind of my life just as I knew it kind of fell apart. But so when I found something that like I was really passionate about and I felt the pain of, I was like, I want to help people. Like, this is my calling. And it's been a lot of things even since college. I mean, I started college in 2010, which is crazy. Oh my goodness. And it's really evolved since then. I started with an organization called the Beautiful Project, where I sold bracelets to support the National Eating Disorders Association with my sister. I started another organization in college called Erasing Excuses, but Make It Till You Make It has certainly been my
Oh my
biggest
goodness.
and kind of most
Yeah.
thoughtful organization and my passion. I think I'm really connected to Bake It in a way that I kind of saw the other things as hobbies, and this is like a career and a calling for me. So that's the long story. I'm 33 now, so I've had years and years and years of entrepreneurship. Yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about the really early days of Bake It.
Yeah, and I think you touched on the mental health struggles you've had, including the
Yes.
eating disorder background
Yep.
and your recovery.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting when people hear about my eating disorder recovery, they're really curious how I got into baking because it's really like the flip side of, for me anyway, for so long food was all about shame and
Mhm.
silence and sneakiness and secrecy. And now to be on the other side of like celebration and like sprinkles on everything and all of
Yes.
these things.
Yeah, your brand is so fun.
Oh, thank you.
Everyone has to check it out. You gotta check her out. Send them all the links later, but
Yeah,
yes, it's very
yeah,
fun. It's really
yes.
joyful. Yeah.
Thank you. So it is really interesting when people hear about when I have the opportunity to share my story. It does feel like a big gap, and it really has been. I grew up in a small suburban town with my mom and my dad and a younger sister. And I think growing up, I had like every extracurricular activity at my fingertips, every resource, every sense of support. I grew up in a very affluent community. And I think that growing up in that community, while it came with an extreme amount of privilege, I also feel like there was a lot of perfectionism and constant competition, always feeling like you had to be the best. I mean, I talk now about how like every single kid in my high school, maybe except for one or two, like went on to a 4-year university. Like that's not normal. I mean, I don't
Right,
know. Like that was what
right.
I always kind of,
We sorry
yeah,
to interrupt, but we've
no,
never talked about this, I don't think.
yeah,
My doctoral dissertation actually examines I even put it in quotes, the privilege of affluence.
yeah,
And it's looking at the mental health risks of youth, particularly through the sons, because they're often, or at least at the time, my dissertation was a little while ago, but I think we understand a little bit more now, but it was sort of like, oh, you're privileged. So
right,
how bad
exactly.
can it be? And yet,
Yeah,
the researchers sort of stumbled upon actually, for looking at disadvantaged youth, there are these outcomes. But then if we look at the other end of the spectrum, there's a lot of
yeah,
issues. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly
yeah.
as you're describing.
Unfortunately, it's really thank you for sharing that with me, and I'm so glad that you shed light on that. Oh, I've had, like, maybe 4 or 5 people in my grade from high school die by suicide. There are
Yeah.
these, like, really
Yeah. Yeah.
real risks
Yeah.
and not
Serious.
really
Yeah.
talking about mental health. I mean, I didn't know granted, I am a millennial, so, like, I know that, like, Gen Z is, you know, mental health is not something that's super like very much more like accessible and people are talking about it. But yeah, so I didn't really have anyone hearing from anybody about their mental health journey. So I always felt like I was the only one who was struggling with these feelings. And my mom also has like a very serious eating disorder. So growing up in an environment and with her, there was always a lot of like anxiety around food for me. It was really how we connected. And I think that definitely had its impacts. And, just wanting as a child, like just wanting your parents' love, like, of course, like for me
Sure.
that I
Of course.
saw that through like food and being the smallest I could possibly be. I also mentioned in the beginning, I have depression and OCD, and I didn't know either of those things either until things really started to get very difficult for me in college. I left
Mhm.
my house, my community, my safe space, and I went into a whole new environment, and I couldn't the anxiety that I was, like, shoving down, I couldn't handle it anymore, and I started having panic attacks and, just really wasn't functioning. I'm really grateful to these friends that I made during orientation who brought me to the counseling center and, like, saw how much I was struggling. I'm
Mm.
forever grateful for them. That was my first
Good
introduction.
friends.
Very good friends, very good
Yeah,
friends.
not every college age student, maybe today it is different, they get so much different training, but yeah,
I
that's
know,
still a
I
hard that can be a hard
Me
thing to
too.
do.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
especially as, like, a peer and just, like, wanting
yeah,
to Yeah, absolutely. So, very grateful. That was my first introduction to, like, therapy and medication. I was in and out of, the hospital a lot during my first 2 years of college, really struggling with suicidal ideation and depression, not being able to function, eating disorder, symptoms, and just really trying everything. Like, that is something that I will give myself a lot of credit for. I never backed down from the challenge. And I also, my entire experience living with mental health challenges, I've always been very open book. I think because it's so isolating, people don't talk about it. I really want to be a source of hope. I think Mariska Hargitay, who's like one of my idols, said, oh, I'm going to butcher the quote, but there's something along the lines of, she said something about like lightening like her work is like really about lightening the load for the next person who carries it, something to that effect. And that's how I see myself as well in the mental health
yeah.
space. Like, I'm going to go through something and I'm going to make sure that it's felt in like a less capacity because I went through it and I helped someone, whether I was sharing that they're not alone, I was sharing my takes or my skills. I try and do that a lot on social media now. Not that
Yeah.
I have all the answers by any means, but
But
I
you
do have a
have
lot
your
of
personal
experience.
experience and people yeah. I mean, I do think there's benefit from learning certain skills, from a trained professional, but there's also something
Yeah.
really comforting about seeing someone, whether they see you as a peer or like a big sister or whatever the
Yes.
role that you might play is. It's like it feels a little more accessible because they know you've walked through it. It's a different kind of helping. I think it's beautiful.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. And I think that's really kind of brings it back around to like the work that I'm doing now is that like I really want it to be accessible. Unfortunately, therapy is very expensive, medication. We live in like a world where it's really not that easy. I'm so blessed and had the most amazing care at McLean Psychiatric Hospital in my home state of Massachusetts and one of like the best premier mental health treatment centers. And I know that's not the case. Like there are so anything I can do to help others. Not to say that those who have that experience like are fixed or healed. I mean, I'm certainly
Mhm.
not. But I think that like it feels really important to me to spread the awareness, more than that, to inspire
Yeah.
action
Yeah.
around supporting
Yeah.
others.
And
Yeah.
also, there is the issue of accessibility and like the privilege. Like, again, not
Yeah.
everyone can access for lots of different reasons. I mean, even if you had the finances, there's a lot of
Yeah.
places that everything just today is
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
crazy how it is set up. But also you had the courage to make use of those. Like I know from being on the other end as a provider in those spaces, like it
Yeah.
takes so much courage for someone to avail themselves of like the full support that they can get because it's a whole different world.
Yeah. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a
Thank
whole
you
new
for
language you learn. It's just like
It
it's like
is.
stepping into a whole new world. Yeah.
I've been trying to write a little bit more about my experiences. And it's like just like the jargon even, like
Yes.
kind of
So
understanding like the whole
jargony.
system or like, I don't know, like all of these things that, feel really real and they are real and have the experience of someone inside feeling it. But yeah, I mean, there have been many hospitalizations, many moments of overwhelm, never gonna get through this. And somehow, I have. And sometimes it's really
Mhm.
hard to believe even now having my track record being like 100% of your hardest days. It's still hard to believe sometimes that I'll make it through some of the things that I've struggled with. I feel like I had an amazing opportunity to engage in TMS treatment for depression. I'm not sure how much you know about
Mm,
TMS. I know you're
mm.
in the world
No, but
mental.
share your
Yeah,
experience
yeah,
because that's
yeah.
not, yeah, as common.
Yes. So TMS is transcranial magnetic stimulation. The way it described to me is that something was going on my head and essentially like it looks like a helmet and it was going to like whatever was happening up there, it was going to increase the depression fighting army in my brain. Like there's just like there's not the the troops are not working and so
Yeah.
like we're going to
You're
try
getting
this
the
and
troops together.
exactly. And, yeah, I mean, I came at TMS after I mean, I believe I've had depression since I was, like, 13. Like, I can remember being in 8th grade and really struggling with, like, suicidal ideation, but I always had this, like, very bubbly, smiling presence, so no one really ever knew, and even still, like, I work very hard to live the way I look, the way I like feel and authentically, but it's hard to take off the mask sometimes.
Yeah.
But I came to
Yeah.
TMS at like a really difficult time. I've had such great experiences with medication. I'm finally in like kind of a cocktail that works for me, and I love talking not love talking about medication, but I think that's like something that's very stigmatized. So I love being able
Mhm.
to share
Be
that like
open. Yep.
it's a tool and it's
Yep.
worked for me and not for everyone, very personal choice. But for me, it's done a lot. But when I found TMS, I was really looking for something extra, and TMS is amazing. It's been FDA approved since I know a lot about this, and I'll share why at the end.
Mhm.
Since like 1995, so I know people don't really talk about it, but it's not necessarily like super new either and it changed my life. I haven't had a depressive episode since 2023 when I did TMS.
Wow.
I definitely still struggle with like kind of this lower grade depression and life like human
Yeah.
always,
It's life. Yes.
still have all the feelings, but the the major refractory depression of like I can't get out of bed, like and you know what, even if I woke up tomorrow, I've had 3 years of like joy in that
Yeah.
capacity. Um
And creating new neural pathways with this.
yes,
It's like getting the
exactly.
army
Mhm.
getting the army in place, and then, like, you've had 3 years of practice with these new like, a
Yeah,
different I mean, continued from before, of course, but,
of course.
so
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
great. It's like every bit of, like, adding to the resilience,
absolutely.
in your
That's such a good
brain.
point. Yeah.
Mhm.
The on the flip side of the TMS experience, it did not I wanna be very clear. TMS did not make me anxious, but taking away the depression did. So, the, like, TMS didn't create this, like, level of anxiety, but not feeling weighed down by depression brought a lot of room for the anxiety and the OCD of my brain to like, hello, we were here.
Mhm.
And so that has kind of been my journey over the last few years since completing TMS, really getting the anxiety and the OCD under control. It was always kind of there. It was always present, but like the level of like not needing of yeah, it's been
Yeah,
hard. So I started
yeah.
exposure therapy. I have an OCD therapist who's helped me leaps and bounds. But it's hard. I mean, it's like it's every day. Sometimes it can feel defeating, like, I'm on this like life journey, but at the same time, like it keeps me really true to my work. Like I am living
You're in
like
it.
what I
Yeah, you're in
yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, I'm sort of smiling as you're sharing all of these things because we mentioned, like, all the jargon, and there may be some women, I mean, because 'cause you're in the world. I mean, you've been in it, you speak on mental health, and you're also walking out your healing journey, and obviously, I've been in this world for a long time, both professionally and personally as well, but,
Yeah.
like, there are, I'm sure, women and men maybe listening right now that are like, What are they saying?" All these all the like, "No, no, no, it's okay." Um, just because there is all this language, that we use in the mental health field. So I wanna back up just a second because
Yeah.
there are so many things that you've shared already where I'm like, "Oh, that's good. Ooh, that's good." I wanna sort of highlight this thing that I think a lot of women, gifted women in particular, like, uh, capable highly capable women, smart, bright, creative, however you wanna call it. I use the word gifted women, but, when you talked about as as far back as 13, maybe even earlier that, you
Yeah.
don't remember, but that there was this struggle, but you could easily mask the
Yes.
struggle
Mhm.
because I'm guessing because you had skills, like you were able to, whereas another child may not be able to mask that as
Mhm.
well. And it doesn't always mean because you're gifted, but I do think
Mm. Yeah.
and know that we can come into the world with certain capabilities,
Mhm.
and we can, for example, and I have my own story like this when I was young,
Yeah.
and in my adolescence, one of the warning signs, I guess you could say, that parents can look out for their teenage kid or daughter,
Mhm.
is that their grades start slipping. Like, oh, warning sign, they're not doing as well. Well, my grades were just fine. I was like straight A student all the way through when I was like deeply suicidal,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I still had straight A's. So,
Yeah, right.
I'm saying that like it's not always as easy to spot whether you know how to put the happy face on or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about like what has your journey been from that 13-year-old version of yourself to 33?
Yep.
You got a
Uh-huh.
couple decades of practice
Yes.
of of, like, observing and becoming aware of, like, "Oh, this is what I've done," and, like, and then just this new way of being, and I know it's a continual practice, but
Yeah.
because I think a lot of women, like, whether they could be 53, and still struggle
Yeah.
with living, showing up in the world, or at least spaces in the world. It doesn't mean we have to be like completely vulnerable with our emotions in like certain spaces. It would be inappropriate. But like, how do we
Course.
generally show up in the world in alignment and true to who we are, like what's really going on instead of masking it all across the board? What has
Yeah.
that been like for you?
Yeah, I think for so long the message was to, like, perform. Like, literally, like, and the first thing I thought of when I said that was, like, "Sing out, Louise." I was a theater kid. Like, literally,
Uh-huh.
like, from the beginning, like, performance on, no
Yeah.
one sees anything else. That's how I got standing ovations in community theater. That's how I got my
Literal standing ovation. Yeah, yeah. We talk about, yeah, right, performing for the audience. You literally
yeah.
had an audience. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I felt like I was getting my parents' attention and love and support, and so I think 2 things. First of all, I love this question because 'cause I've done, like, quite a few podcasts in my day, and no one's ever asked me that, so I'm really excited to
Yay.
explore this. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, yeah, I think 2 things. I think getting really clear on my values and how I wanna show up in the world has been very important, and I can really thank my OCD therapist, Kelly, for that. I'm definitely gonna send her the link to this
Thank you,
because
Kelly.
he has gotten very, like, it's been very helpful to identify because I've always felt like I have a good idea of who I am. Like, I know what I care about. I'm compassionate. I have a huge heart, but like to really get granular and thinking about like how do I actually want to show up is great because before I was kind of just like kind of blindly walking around thinking like, oh, is this me? Is this me? But having that like really big set of values and then also surrounding myself with people who I feel like I can be my truest self with. I'm
Yeah.
really lucky to have a community of people, my husband mainly, friends, my therapeutic team, where I feel like I can show up living those values and be embraced and be celebrated for not having a big smile on my face, like actually be seen like it's super brave to be vulnerable. I have something in my Instagram bio that says vulnerable before it was trendy.
Yeah.
My
I know. I love it.
therapist yeah, my therapist Dina gave that assigned that to me. And it's been interesting though, because I do feel like I've always been very comfortable sharing and being vulnerable. And I think that's one of my greatest superpowers. But I've also learned that you're right. It's not for like there is like some element of like I can keep some of this for myself. And I think that's only helped me show up more authentically. It
I
feels
agree.
very intentional.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of
Yeah.
where I land with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I think the arc, like in our culture over the last, like maybe say a decade or more, when once
Yeah.
Brene Brown brought it on the
Yes,
scene, and everyone,
exactly. Yes.
it is very trendy. And it's interesting as a therapist again, where it's like, well, this has always been part. It's
Yeah.
always been part of the work that we were doing behind the scenes,
Yeah.
even if
Yeah.
it wasn't being talked about. But
Right.
I think people trying to figure out what does that look like And
Yeah.
of course, you have social media as part, like people trying to figure it out on social media. And I'm sure, again, for you, it's like who you are. It's like, sort of that personal brand, right?
Yeah.
You have a mission,
Yep.
and you're showing up, and a big part of the mission is being open about the journey, because this is what you're talking
Yes.
about, and at the
Absolutely.
same time honoring the
Yeah.
boundaries that are appropriately, like, protective of your heart
Yes.
in a world and on social media where it's not always, so kind. I don't, so yeah, that balance, like striking it right, I think is
If
important.
Yeah. It feels more new to me to be, like, learning to trust that, and, I love the idea of living my life in a world, or a mindset of, like, abundance, like, there's room for
Mhm.
everyone, there's room for everything. However, I think growing up the way that I did, that's not my experience. There's, like, a lot of fear around scarcity, like, what if I don't tell the story this way, like, everyone's gonna forget about me, like, all of these, like, this internal dialogue. And so really trying to shift to the abundance mindset, or at least move away from the scarcity mindset, and know that, like, the people who need my message will connect with it and find it through opportunities like this. And, you know, I guess I kind of like feels connected to the values sides of things, like
Yeah.
knowing, being really, I think when I started Bake It Till You Make It, and even when I started doing the fusion beads at around my neighborhood, like I really wanted to be for everyone. I can remember writing my first book proposal and being like, this book is for everyone, because I want everyone to feel touched by my mission and want everyone to be able to see themselves through me. But I think that might be doing me a little bit of a disservice sometimes, or doing others a disservice sometimes. I'm not for everyone, and maybe that's a good thing. I love to
Not
be, but
everyone wants sprinkles on their cupcakes.
exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes, yes,
Well,
yes. Mhm.
there's so many things. It's so fun getting to talk to you, and there's so many things that we could talk about. Here's what is coming up in my mind, but I want you to
Yeah,
also sort of go in what direction that you would like.
yeah,
Again, you've talked about, like, that picture of you as a young girl, like, performing and getting a standing ovation, right?
yeah,
And, like,
yeah.
this relationship with yourself as it relates to performance and
Mhm.
achievement and all the things from the culture, that were hard growing up in, and then working through that, in college and beyond. And now you
Yeah,
are a public speaker. Like, your profession is, again, you're standing in front of audiences. You're writing books. You're even, I know you're not going to say this necessarily, but you're getting invited to the White House. Like, you have this career and this journey
mhm.
where you are achieving a lot, and you have audiences, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
how do you relate? Because I imagine you've done so much work, that
yeah,
that not that it's like a piece of cake now, but for someone else who might be like, "Okay, I've performed my whole life. I was
yeah,
that girl who, like, the good girl, got the good grades," or
yeah.
whatever version it looked like for her, right? And now I'm a grown woman, and I'm trying to undo this unhealthy relationship with achievement, performance, success.
Mhm.
I have had my own journey, but I'm very curious for you, because the work you're doing it's completely, it's like I have this picture of, like, here is the original, the kind of distorted version, and
Yeah,
now the new version, it's healthier, but it's like if we looked at it, it could look the same, like what you're doing, right? Like speaking in front of
yeah.
people, having an audience, going around and getting a lot of accolades. Not that you're doing it for that reason, but can you speak to your process of how do you disentangle yourself and your sense of self and your
Mhm.
sense of self-worth from the accolades when you continue to get them?
Yeah. Well, it's something I'm figuring out as we speak.
Yeah,
I think this is my current life's work right now, I
yeah,
think,
yeah.
especially, because getting invited to the White House in 2022, especially, that I would say that's definitely been, like, my flashiest achievement and best, and, like, something I'm super proud of. But I think that I really felt like if I think I've adopted this mindset of, like, if going to the White House, if going to the White House with Selena Gomez and shaking hands with former President Biden, and being able to share my story on stage, like, doesn't make me feel full and, like, doesn't make me feel like enough, then, like, it's not coming from the outside. Like, it is absolutely like, if there is it is not it's
Yeah.
not this is an inside job,
Yeah.
and I think that has been a really hard pill to swallow, for lack of
Yeah.
a better term, because I think even since then, there's been, like, I have a bake it till you make it bucket list in my phone of, like, 60 things that I wanna achieve, and some of them are for ranging, long big range, and there's this and I was actually just recently talking to someone saying, like, "What if I never get there?" And they were like, "Well, where's there?" I was like, "I have no idea." So I'm, like,
Yeah.
really, like, trying to
Yeah.
understand, like,
Yeah, you're
what.
in it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
am
I
in it.
appreciate your honesty around that. Right. It's
Yeah,
not like we just figured out. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you're
yeah,
in it.
I'm in it. I'm learning because it's amazing to achieve these things. It makes me feel proud. It makes me feel like the work I'm doing is connecting to people
Yeah.
are connecting
And it
to it,
matters.
and it matters. Yeah, but it's not my life's breath. That's another
Mm,
Kellyism.
mm,
It's not my life's breath. It is something amazing and something I can be proud of and incredible, but it's not like I'm not like I'm a full person outside of my accomplishments. Do I believe that yet? I don't know, but that's where
yeah.
I'm getting
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where I'm going, that's where I'm trying
That's
to
good.
go. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's hard. How have you can I ask how you've done
Mm.
that? Or, like.
Well, what I'm thinking, and everyone's everyone's way of getting here is obviously going to look very different.
Yeah, of
And for
course.
me, I will just say briefly that it took my like very serious health
Yeah.
crises that pulled me out of the place where I was always functioning and achieving and working and everything, and that
Mm.
was sort of huge part of my identity. And when I had to take the last, I mean, that really started in, I mean, it was leading up to 2020, but then in 2020 was when I really pulled back.
Yeah. Okay,
And
gotcha.
I would say over the last several years, because I was choosing not to do anything really that was like
Yeah.
I wasn't achieving anything. I was actually sharing with some women early this morning. I was like, I remember in 2020 waking up, and this is even not pandemic related, just because of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
life I had chosen at that point. It was like every morning I'd wake up, I would empty the dishwasher, I would make sure the kitchen was clean, I would make and I'm like, is this all I'm doing right now?"
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
felt very disorienting, but I knew that while I was focused on my physical healing that I needed, there was this opportunity in that space to
Yeah.
disentangle my sense of self. And I wish, honestly, I wish I could say I had done it much earlier. And while
Yeah.
there's always levels of work that we do, I
Yeah.
think that something really broke off of me in a good way. This
Yeah.
like
Yeah, yeah.
a final like I'm ripping the Band-Aid off, and it's
Yeah.
like you're not. And then I moved to North Carolina, and I remember very deliberately introducing myself and not ever saying anything about what I did as a job, and that
Mhm.
was freeing. That I was
Yes.
getting to know people, and people were getting to know me for the first time, and work like that was not a part of any conversation, and
Yeah.
I've had to, it's been really wonderful.
Yeah.
And
Those are
now
good.
I feel this trust of, like, I can go now and I can do things and I can succeed or whatever, but I'm not, I don't feel at all driven by any of that. Like,
Mm.
it
Yeah.
feels very it feels like, "Oh, I get to do something like that," but it's
Mhm.
not like, "Oh, I have to." But I can
Yeah.
really relate, again, because I was always this very driven young
Yeah.
woman, and I always had all these things, and I still have things that I would like to do, but I one of the questions I remember asking sitting with myself of, like, if I
Yeah.
never did any of them,
Mhm.
if for some reason, for the rest of my life, I all I could do, in quotes,
Yeah.
all I could do was, love my husband well, love my family well, be a good
Yeah.
person in the world, and whatever, just be me on a good
Mhm.
day. Would that be enough? And I could honestly answer, yes,
That's
it
amazing.
would be enough.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what my for myself of like, okay.
Yes,
That's
yes.
good.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
isn't. I am enough. It's
yeah,
okay. I don't have to do all the things, but we get
right,
to do all the things. But I do think when we're, highly capable women,
yeah,
it's hard to stop doing all the
right.
things because we enjoy it and we're creative and we wanna make things.
Of course,
But
yeah.
when we have times in life where for whatever reason, sometimes we're forced to stop or do something different because we start having children and life
Yeah,
looks
yeah.
or, there's different
Y
seasons of life, and I think a lot of women, whether they feel like they've had successful career or not, like when their identity is in their work, it can be really challenging when all of a sudden their identity, like they're not seeing it there. It's
Right,
hard.
right.
Or when, people retire. It's
Yeah.
probably the
Yeah,
other
yeah,
point in life where a lot of women freak
yeah.
out about that.
Yeah, that makes
So,
a lot of sense. Thank you for
yeah.
sharing that. It's really helpful to kind of see myself like a
Yeah.
few steps down.
Yeah,
So
yeah, but it's a process, like,
it
yeah,
is,
and it doesn't mean, like, stop achieving, right? Like, I was,
of course.
it's like pursue the dreams.
It's the
Um,
sprinkles on top, like what you
it's just
said.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's the sprinkles on top exactly. It's like,
yeah.
you're like, "I got this really good cupcake, but now we get the sprinkles on top."
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
yes. Okay, so I wanna bring us home a little bit, and I wanna just give a little space for you to talk about, like, most like, what are you feeling most passionate and pressing on your heart, both
Oh,
in your
yeah.
message to people? I know you've been doing this for years now, but like what feels very alive for you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a great question. I think this is something that I'm actively thinking about a lot. I guess for Bake It Till You Make It started as this mental health cookbook. I had thought that that was like the beginning and the end. I created this and on to the next project, the next fusion beads, the next beautiful project, whatever. I think that this past year in 2025, I did a lot of focus on community building. It was the first time I felt like I wasn't like constantly pushing things out because for the first time, I've been going through the traditional pitching book process. Historically, I've self published. And that's been amazing. And I have a lot of pride in the fact that I did that. But I kind of came to this space in the summer of 2024 that I was like, I want to try this. Like, let's give it a shot. And
Why not?
77 agents later, I found my agent. So I just want to say for anyone who is in this process or really otherwise, there is the right person out there for you. And, but anyway, it's a slow process. And because of that, I really had to slow down and kind of think about like, be a little bit more thoughtful about like how I want to be spending my time. Cause I wasn't just like pushing things out. It wasn't a celebration party. It wasn't this. Like there really was really important to me to kind of connect. I think most of my community building is in the Boston area. I try and do at least an event every quarter, usually a little bit more than that, but that's those storytelling nights have been feeling really important to me. So as we go into 2026, I'd really like to expand that. I'd also really like to take the next step on my book. Of course, that's more of like a person that's like, well, it's a personal goal and for a Bake It goal, but immediately a personal goal. So I can kind of keep working
Yes.
on the writing that I love to do. But I think in terms of like more opportunities to come together, I think this is a very isolating time to be a human being for a lot of different ways. And I think the more connection that I can foster, I think not only for my community, but for myself, is how I'm going to be doing my best work and hopefully helping others do theirs.
Yes, because what you're talking about, they're in-person
Yes,
events
in person events.
in
Yes.
Boston,
Sorry.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify for our
Yes.
listeners. I
Yes.
thought
Yes.
I thought because 'cause I've been following along with you, but,
Yes.
yeah, and I think yeah, it is so, I there's this growing like, it's been growing, post-pandemic, but
Yeah.
I think that and then with all the anxiety and rise around AI and all the
Yeah.
things, we're like, "We want real people, let's get together.
Yes. Right.
Let's just
Right.
be with humans."
Yeah. And it's so
Put our
healing.
phones away and be with
Yes,
humans. Yeah.
exactly. It's so wonderful to be with other people, and other people have like everyone has a story. I truly believe that at the bottom of my heart. I say that after every public speaking presentation I give. I'm like, we talked about my story today, but I want you to think about what your story is. 'Cause I think that is so, not only can that transcend and help others, but I think just as a personal practice, knowing your
Yes.
narrative is really
Yes.
huge. It has been
And
for me
having
anyway.
yeah,
Yeah,
and having the opportunity to share it because narratives can change over time every time we get the
that's a
chance
good
to
point.
share it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's really, it's very therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I also wanna say just because your personality and why one of the reasons why I love you so much is because you're just such a like, you are cupcakes with sprinkles on top. Like, you're so joyful, and it's contagious,
Thank you.
and we know, right, from the science knows, like, when we're in the room, emotions are
Mhm.
contagious. So there is like, what you're doing is, yes, you're gathering people around but, like, you just being you in proximity to other people literally is spreading joy. And that's
Thank
just such
you.
a beautiful gift. I hope like everyone listening to this episode just like thinks, how can I spread joy this year? Like, how can I step into places in my community? It doesn't
Yeah.
always have to be like organizing big events. It could just literally being coffee with a friend or whatever it looks like, or inviting people over to your house for dinner. And being aware of how our emotions are contagious and
Yeah.
how we can transmit joy and peace or whatever it is that we're, and like goodness into the world. Like that's can be our like our little way to, bring some light into the world. It's so good. But you do that so, so well.
Thank
Okay. So in closing, because
you.
this is the Power to Flourish podcast, I always ask this final question for you, and you can answer this in terms of this particular season or just in general in your life.
Okay.
What does flourishing mean to you, or what does it look like to you to flourish?
Oh, wow. That's such a good question. I think like I think the first thing I think of is like growth, of course. And I think that a lot of my growth so far, has been around building my brand. But now I think turning the flourishing and the growth inward is like where my attention needs to be. And I think
Right.
like that will permeate into the bake it till you make it world and to everyone I meet and connect with. But I think it's time to like focus on that personal flourishing and growth. And not that I've been putting it off, but it finally feels like things are kind of set in a way that like I can do that and like
Yeah.
kind of enter this new 2.0 version of my work and also myself. I'm a big fan of the glimmer walk right now. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
it's something that you do,
I
but
used to teach it to my students before.
oh, okay.
I did glimmer walks before they were trendy. I'll put it that way.
But I think like really like
I love the new trendy titles.
that is so
Yes.
funny. Yeah, really taking time to like I feel very touched by what you said about like if am I being a loving to my partner, am I being loving to my family, like that's enough. And I really I really want to internalize that because those are things that I value. I want other people to feel seen, and it doesn't have to be at a big event. It could be like the guy at Dunkin'.
That's right.
And so I think that
It's
that's my
true.
next step in flourishing is really just showing up as authentically as possible in every space that I can.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
so good. Well, Dayna Altman, where can people find you to learn more about your fun sprinkle journey and all the amazing things and the book that will be coming out and your past books? Where do you want to send
Yes,
them?
absolutely. So I think the most convenient place is my website, which is bakeittillyoumakeit.co, not com, co, maybe com
Okay.
someday. I'm also on Instagram and I post a lot there, probably the most, and it's just my name, Dayna Altman. And then I have a second Instagram, Bake It Till You Make It LLC, but I'm always cross posting. If you find me on Instagram, you'll find everything else. My books are available on Amazon and if you have any listeners in the Boston area, some local Barnes and Noble stores, but
Awesome.
purchasing online is wonderful, but there's like connections to that on my website and also on my social media.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much for coming, sending and spreading your joy and the sprinkles and your story and being so open and vulnerable. So,
thank you.
women, I just love that they can hopefully some people can see parts of their story in your story
I
and whatever bits that I share that they can say like there is hope. There is
Yeah.
hope. Even when you're still walking things out, it doesn't always have to be heavy, but there is a time and place for getting that support. So I hope that people
Yeah.
learn that from your story because it's so
Thank
important.
you. Me too. And that
Yeah.
they're not alone too. I think
Right.
that's always
Right.
important too. So yes,
Yes.
thanks
All
for connecting
right.
with me.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
All right. Bye.
Did I not tell you that you would fall in love with her? Is she not just the best? I love her. And it is so refreshing just being able to have these honest conversations and share them with you. I'm so lucky because I get to have these conversations with people all the time, but I know that doesn't always happen for people. So I love that you got to listen in on Dayna's story today. And I hope you do check her out. Find her on Instagram, say hello. She is the friendliest human being, I swear. And I hope that this episode really encouraged you, gave you hope, and gave you a vision for your own life. I hope you join me next week right here on The Power to Flourish. And until then, keep flourishing. Thank you for listening to the Power to Flourish podcast. I hope today's conversation left you feeling more seen, more supported, and more deeply connected to yourself. And if this episode resonated, would you take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend? It's one of the best ways to help this work reach the women who need it most. You'll find show notes, links, and resources from today's episode at powertoflourish.com. And now just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It's not therapy, medical advice, or a substitute for professional support. And listening doesn't make me your therapist or doctor, though if you're looking for a coach, you know where to find me. All right, beautiful one, that's it for now. Until next time, trust yourself, honor your gifts, and keep flourishing.